Hey, yo, what's up? A really quick intro before the video. The other day, Sarge, Joardee, and I got to sit down with three of the main devs that made Ulduar, right? They've been doing everything. They're the ones who decided what to do with the hard modes and what bosses are going to do with this and the tuning for that and this and that. So we went through every single boss on here and got to pick their brains about it all. Of course, they asked us some questions. We talked about our experiences as we cleared multiple times through the hard modes. Besides Algalon, we know Algalon was kind of shitty. We didn't clear Algalon. Other than that, not too many people did. Other than that, we cleared all the other bosses in the hard modes and stuff. So it was really nice to be able to sit down with them and pick their brain about everything about this fantastic raid that we're about to go through, right? Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Man, big shout out to Blizzard allowing Sarge, Joardee, and I to come on the show. You know, big shout out to Joardee and Sarge, my boys, and enjoy it. Peace.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today. We've got three Blizzard developers here working on the Classic team, and we have three awesome members of the community that we're going to be talking to today. I think getting us started, let's just go ahead and kick off with some introductions. I'm going to kind of go along the list of where I see people. So I don't know, start with Tim. Go ahead.
Hey there, I'm Tim Jones. I'm a senior technical designer on Classic. I've worked at Blizzard. I actually started interning at Blizzard back in 2006, so I've been around for quite some time. Yeah, and I'm just excited to talk about Ulduar.
Awesome. I'm next, I guess, in my list. So yeah, I'm Josh Greenfield. I also known as Agrand on the forums. I'm a game producer for WoW Classic. Yeah, I just kind of help these guys move forward to getting releases out the door and everything. I've been at Blizzard for 13 years and I've been on Classic since the very beginning. Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris Zerhet, principal technical designer. I've been working, I started working on WoW back in 2005. I think it was patch 1.6 was the first patch I did any work on. And then took a little break to work on a couple other games, but came back to Classic earlier this year. I've been playing Classic like crazy since it first came out, just like Josh. Really involved in the game and really dedicated to it and want to see it do as much as it possibly can.
Awesome. Joardee.
Hi, I'm Joardee. I'm a gamer. I've been making boss guides and stuff for about a year now, and yeah, I've been streaming. It's been great, and I'm just excited to get to talk to you guys because I spent a lot of time in Ulduar, and you know, it's amazing, and I'm excited to ask you a bunch of questions.
Awesome. Sorry.
Hi, what's up, guys? I'm Sarth, also a gamer, as we've got three of us here today. Spent a little less time than Joardee in Ulduar, which was hilarious. His face this weekend, he was there forever. So really excited to talk about that, but I focused mostly on raiding. I think we all do, and we're all just content creators really hyped on this next release.
Awesome. And Crix.
What's up, guys? My name is Crix. Just like you guys, I'm obsessed with World of Warcraft. I raid with Joardee in the Guild Fusion where we just enveloped all of Ulduar, and I'm super excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Well, it's great to get everybody here to talk about Ulduar. Obviously, we're very excited about it. It just went up on PTR. I think that's probably a good place to start. This is probably going to be the last I really talk here, but I want to hear you guys really, you know, what did you guys think of Ulduar? Like, what did you find exciting? What did you find surprising? Just kind of want to get your read.
The challenge was great. Like, it was so fun, and the hard modes, the later hard modes, are so ridiculous. And like the first day was the most exciting because everyone was diving in and we were getting like DC'd. And actually, Josh, you zoned into people's actual raids and stuff and figured out like XT was just DCing everyone and helped fix it. So it was so fun to see the entire Blizzard team kind of like involved in the raid testing. But I think this is like one of the most nostalgic raids of all time. I'll let Joardee talk because he spent forever in there, but this was amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I spent 7 days straight in there. I was having dreams about it. It was a lot. But it's, you know, I can say with certainty that it's my favorite raid in Classic to date. I never played Wrath back in the day. I like went off to college and the internet was bad in the dorms, and I was just like, I can't do this. I'm gonna stop. But yeah, it's by far the best raid yet, and the variance and difficulty is really fun because it kind of leaves something for everybody. And you know, there were fights in there that we didn't get down, and that's exciting and something to look forward to. So we had done a lot of planning, and that wasn't enough. So that's cool. And kind of spooky because we're used to just blazing through everything. So, you know, you see the retail or the modern game and how difficult that is, and it's like, okay, well, this is a taste of that, I guess. So,
I
Craig,
agree.
what do you think? Yeah,
I agree. It was a lot of fun. It was more fun than I thought. It was more fun, and it was more challenging than I thought it was going to be. All of it was. And I'm with Joardee's raid, so we did everything but besides Algalon, and I knew that there'd be a jump to it because I could tell when you guys did Sunwell that you guys added some difficulty. So I was like, oh, they're gonna juice this up a little bit. But I was shocked. What do we have? Like 86 pulls on Yogg 0 before we finally killed him. Like that. It was crazy.
Too
it was
many.
A lot. Yeah, it was a lot, and I was shocked. And I come from retail where I like that. And when I quit retail and I came to Classic, I was very excited for those kind of, you know, and there obviously we lacked the difficulty, and now it's here, and I'm excited.
That's approaching modern mythic difficulty.
It is.
Yeah, yep, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep, the first few bosses, the first half, like you're getting that many pools, you know.
it shouldn't
Awesome.
have been,
Back
but yeah, it
Well,
was.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference is like you're doing it with minimal gear. You haven't had time to farm through Ulduar and get really good gear. Most
Yeah.
people, when we did Yogg 0 back in the old days, and I did do it back in the old days, we had a ton of gear before we did it. So it wasn't 86 swipes to pull it, to learn it, right? It was, you didn't have to do everything absolutely perfectly, but yeah.
Actually, that's a pretty good segue, Chris. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of original Ulduar, like the original development processes? If anyone who's watching doesn't know, Chris was a part of the original WoW Classic or the WoW development team through Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath, and a few expansions past that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about
Sure. So back then I was primarily working on class design, but Ulduar was kind of an all hands on deck moment where we literally everyone on the team was helping with testing, with working on it, with fixing bugs with it, with making things work. And so I remember going in there and helping out, like XT in particular. I was helping the designer who's working on that deal with some of his issues on getting it working just right. But it was really, you know, the launch of Wrath Lich King, we used Naxxramas again because we felt like most players in the original didn't really get to see much of Naxxramas. It was a little too hard, a little too late. Most people didn't get a progression far enough, and so it was not seen. So let's let everybody see Naxxramas and start there, and that gave us time to put a huge amount of energy into Ulduar. So Ulduar was in development before Wrath of Lich King released. It wasn't like we started development. Okay, got it out the door. Let's start Ulduar. Ulduar is in development the entire time that we were working on Wrath of Lich King, and it just got a huge amount of energy and love added to it. And the designer started to get really excited about this new idea of what if during the encounter, and I think Sartharian was the first place you see this, what if during the encounter you do something different and now the encounter is really hard? And that really captured our imagination with what can we do with encounters to really make really interesting things happen during encounters. And so Ulduar plus Sartharian are really the only time we got to do that, but it was one of the most exciting ideas we ever did in World of Warcraft, where the thing you do in the encounter makes the fight become harder. It's like, oh, don't push that button. Well, you did push that button, and now everything changes. You know, it's super cool and super exciting, and it was a lot of energy put together, and it was so much work that's kind of why we never did it again. It's Ulduar is a unique one of. It's the only one that really has that, where the encounters transform based on what you do during the encounters. Past that, we kind of went into let's have a regular system for doing it because frankly, this is too much work. This was sort of the one great experience like that.
I love it. I love that. I like how Sartharion is too. How the aspect of the fight with the three drakes and even the Zerg part of it, which, you know, some people meme about, and then how Ulduar is. Right. I love it. The option for Ulduar modes, being able to activate a mode by killing the heart, or activate the mode rather than, you know, talking to a chromie or setting a difficulty, because it's something I didn't do in the past. I didn't play Ulduar, so.
To be fair, we did do it once before that, which was in Encourage with the bug trio, the royal.
Oh yeah,
bugs. But it was the first place we started to play with that idea. But then Sartharian said, "Oh, we really got," and then, you know, Iron Council's a full evolution off of what we did with the bug trio back then, and then all of Ulduar. It's super crazy.
I was just working on the Iron Council like strategy, and I realized there's like a whole strategy I have no idea how to do because I didn't
the first version,
and that is like so complicated for a developer to like come up with like four or five different ways that the fight might go, and you have to modulate all of them, and yeah, that I can see why you didn't keep going. But it's really fun, and like that's a new way to do it every week if you want to. So
yeah, I think it's technically 6 different ways to go. The order 3 choices the first one and the 2 choices the second. So yeah.
That's why like having all of Ulduar or all of Naxxramas in like one full patch until the next raid release, you had all of that time. So you're like,
yes,
let's give this everything.
Everything we got went into it. Everything we got went into it. Yep.
It's good because it gives people like people will struggle, right? Like we'll get into that, but like people will struggle so hard for some of these hard modes, but it gives them the option to go in and just fight things normally. And it gives this uniqueness and variance where every raid is actually different. Every single week, you could be doing something different. And nowadays people have alts, a lot of them, where every time you're going in there, you don't know exactly what to expect.
I remember the feel was like doing Naxxramas, it started to feel really repetitive. I'm doing the same thing every week, and before that, obviously Black Temple, etc. We did for months and months and months the first time around. But Ulduar never felt repetitive because, like what you're saying, is every week we say, okay, well, we've got the basic fights down. Let's try this hard mode this week. Let's try to master that hard. And so every week we were adding new hard mode difficulties to what we were doing. Fun piece of trivia: the production director for World of Warcraft was actually my raid leader back then.
Oh
so
my
God. All his skills for production direction were nascent in that running that raid. It was pretty funny.
How long did it take you to clear like the hard modes then?
Oh, well, I mean, honestly, we didn't get all of them until actually like we went back and did Yogg 0 after we were in ICC because like, Yogg 0 is so hard. If you if you look at the way people play today, like the average raider is as good as the best raiders were back then in terms of their damage output, survivability, awareness. And so, it just was a lot harder to put teams together to beat everything until we had really, really overgeared it.
I think a lot of it too is like the weak auras and add-ons.
Lots
and
of better
stuff.
tools, better information.
Like we ourselves on Yogg 0, we just couldn't get it until we built a weak aura that was able to auto mark for us. And then we could do it. But we spent 30 polls just like, let's hope RNG works out, and you wouldn't have to do that.
No weak auras in 2009 though.
I remember things like during that first phase is like melee, just don't go anywhere near those clouds. Just don't go over there at all. Go stand over here, do nothing. Kind of. Yeah.
Does it baffle you seeing us use all these weak auras and add-ons? Are you like a little jealous back in the day? You wish you had them, or do you prefer the game without them?
Personally, I prefer the game without them, but I'm using them too.
Well, yeah, same. I think it's a lot of people though. A lot of people would prefer not to use them, but we use them because they're available, right?
It's like an arms race.
It is an arms race, and I think Ulduar was the last time that before players were using really sophisticated add-ons, and as players got more sophisticated with their add-ons, and counter designers got more sophisticated on the complexity, and off they went in this arms race. So Ulduar hadn't really taken off yet. It was starting.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's also been a lot of evolution in like the communication of mechanics through design, art, sound, and boss alerts that just didn't exist back in Classic WoW, or they were starting to exist.
Right.
So
we're much better in the modern game of showing what's about to happen, and sometimes in Classic we're like, well, this is the spell effect we got. Well, can you see the edges of it? What's in, what's out?
That's like Algalon right now. You're like, I don't know where this thing is, and apparently we're dead now. But in retail, it's like very clear.
Yeah, that's probably actually a good segue to talk a little bit about hard modes and stuff and the methodology there. Obviously we amped them up to the kind of the most difficult version. Tim, why don't you maybe talk to us a little bit about the sort of approach there and the sort of the way you approached it and what your process was.
Sure. I mean, it's a multifaceted approach to figuring out how to restore sort of the original design, data, spirit of the encounter. Like the majority of the work is through, and I mentioned this in our little community council talk that we had, but I can look at the database for each of our old patches and stack that data on top of each other, see how it changed from patch to patch, identify where those changes were, then analyze whether or not that change was actually a buff, a nerf, and that can be easy if it's just like, oh yeah, the boss's HP went down, I'll put it back up to what that was. But sometimes the data is a little harder to interpret.
We were talking the other day about the on Ignis. right?
Oh,
As an
sure,
example,
yeah. There's
right?
examples of bugs
Right.
that were
Well,
fixed.
the stacking debuff on the guys, how fast and how high should it stack? Does that make it harder
Right.
if it takes longer, or does it make it easier if it takes longer, right?
Yeah.
Unclear.
There's a change on how many stacks of heat on the constructs it takes for them to trigger their molten ability. I think it was
Ignis.
20, it goes down to 10. And so Chris and I were having this discussion about like, well, what is actually the harder version of the encounter? Because if you can get rid of them with less stacks, then you have strength of the creator that doesn't stack as high on Ignis. So the tank damage is lower overall, but then is the fight more difficult if you have more constructs overall because it takes more stacks of heat to get rid of them. So there's changes like that require some more in-depth discussion, or just like playtesting. Choosing one, throwing it on the PTR, see how you guys react. That's honestly super helpful. What else? I mean, there's also just patch notes. I go to Wowpedia all the time to look at some of the old patch note changes. I'm so thankful that someone out there was recording
they saved those,
our patch notes and saving them on a wiki somewhere. That can be super helpful. And then there's actually a really tricky portion in time where we don't have good visibility on some changes, and that was when hotfixes were applied in patch 3.10 before patch 3.11 was created. Because when I look at 3.10 data, I see the end of that patch's data. So only after all the hotfixes were applied. So I have to give props to our amazing QA team who's delved into our old bug database to find some of the hotfix reports and emails from 14 years ago detailing like, oh, did you know that Mimron was hotfixed in 3.10 and his self-repair cast time is not actually 15 seconds, it's 10 seconds. So you have a less of a window to kill all three parts of him. Or like his emergency mode damage health mods, it's not 25%, they're 30%. So we're making some additional changes that we didn't originally find. Nothing crazy in terms of a scope, but there might be a couple little tuning adjustments that are made from finding those things.
So does that mean after this testing, that was like one of my most, like, I was just rattling my brain about this, was after this first test, you're looking obviously at all of the data and how people dealt with things. And do you think so far there's a lot that will be changed, and will fights be necessarily drastically different, or small tuning, or do you maybe not have the information yet and you're going to be analyzing it?
I'd say overall, and Josh and Chris can speak on this too, but overall from the feedback that we've received from you guys, just the conversation we were having at the beginning of this meeting, it seems like the majority of the instance provides a really satisfying challenge and path of progression from Flame Leviathan all the way to Yogg and then Algalon after that. There are some portions of the raid that I feel like we need to maybe tweak beyond just making a historically accurate version of those fights. I think XT is probably the the outlier. I know like Willie has put out a video on how ridiculous XT is and the damage required to kill him. I think you talked about that too, Joardee. But I don't want like the second critical path boss of the instance, or the fourth boss if you do Razor Skill and Ignis, to be like on par with Algalon or Yogg 0.
Or harder.
This doesn't make sense.
We talk about that. We've talked about that a lot, right, Tim? About how we actually do believe that we're talking a lot about hard modes right now, and the normal modes, I think you guys can probably attest, are pretty surmountable even for average groups.
You can.
Yeah, and the thing that's really great about Ulduar is we feel like it's probably going to have a really satisfying boss and gear progression.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, because the obviously we've tuned it up for modern players to be as difficult as it can be, but that's really mostly in the hard mode space. Normal players these days are so good that it's like we're not super worried about normal groups being able to clear it normal. And then as time goes by, they'll get more of that 2-3-2 gear, and they'll be able to start dipping their toes into like Thorim Hardmode or some of the other easier hard modes, and it'll just progress over time. And it'll almost be like a tier within a tier. And that's the space we're moving into with these hard modes and then heroic, is that you also don't get to a point where, oh, I can't kill Muru, I guess I'm just done this week. You can actually just kill it normal and then move on with your life, and then next week try again with more gear. So and that's a really exciting thing.
I guess the gear eye level buff kind of lends itself to the like, are there planned nerfs for this stuff down the line, or are you going to see like, okay, the eye level of the gear should carry most people into the planned nerf space because the stuff will get a lot easier than it might have otherwise because of the eye level buff?
I think ideally the gear will carry you through.
Okay,
like
cool.
Ideally, we wouldn't have to touch it, wouldn't have to nerf it. But if we do see that, like, this one encounter is just crushing the average groups, they just can't deal with it, maybe we should bring it down a bit. We'll watch for that kind of stuff.
I definitely don't think we want to be premature with nerfs right now when everyone's testing in 213 gear, right? Like even XT is like, I've heard mathematically impossible thrown around, and it's like probably not if you're in mostly 232 with some 252 pieces.
Right.
But at the same point, like, it's like, is it reasonable? I think the version we have on the PTR right now, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, is the never killed version.
Right. No one ever killed that version.
It's pretty close to that,
because it got nerfed so quickly. One of the nice things of the way the gear is going to flow to is even after Trial of the Crusader comes out, the normal mode loot from Trial of the Crusader isn't as good as the hard mode loot from Ulduar. So even then you might be actually, all right, guys, we got like these 2 hard modes we still want to beat. Let's go get some Trial of Crusader gear and come back and beat it. Or even like my original guild did way back when, let's go get some ICC loot and now we can finally beat Yogg Zero Lights, right? That stuff's going to happen. So we're going to get this long progression through Ulduar where it stays relevant for a long time to a lot of people.
As a hero looking for Valinir, that's absolutely good.
So many Valinirs.
Yeah, everybody wants a Valinir.
That's actually really, really important thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just say I'm glad you guys are doing that, because one thing Joardee and I all say to our communities and in our own podcast is that it's going to be hard, but like, don't nerf it. Like, it is a gear progression. Go through 10-man normals into 10-man hard mode splits, then the 25-man normals, and then you'll be able to do the 25-man hard modes. So I'm glad you guys aren't thinking about nerfing anything. So that's good.
But I did say this in the community council chat, and I do mean it, that we are, a lot of these encounters existed in this way for a very short amount of time. Like XT is a good example, is literally nerfed like almost day 1 or week 1, and Razor Scale had nerfs week 1. Like there's a lot of
nerfs week 1. Yeah.
So while we want to let it ride for as long as we can, if we get to a place where there's like clear brick walls, we will make adjustments sooner rather than later.
But
understandable. We again, it's a wait and see kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. But that even might be a case where we could do something clever where we might be able to bring, like, let's say that the typical guilds are getting stuck. Guilds are just trying to do normal, are getting stuck more than we want. We can bring down the normal mode and leave the hard mode alone. That's still because we have different difficulty. We have those options about how hard we want to make it.
I love
Tim's
that.
Tim's like, oh no.
I love that. I like
you can
having
do it. It's an option.
I like having the easy mode and then the hard mode. Like, there should be, in my opinion, an easy, like, one that everybody can do.
And a lot of these, because they have multiple gradations, they have the easy mode and the medium difficulty mode and the hard mode and the really hard mode, right? Like Yogg.
They have like really hard mode with Yogg.
Like Freya, right? Yeah.
Yogg Zero is such a jump from Yogg 1 Light.
It is.
That like it is so huge, and like the amount of people that will even go for that like early on, and the gear will massively help you be able to get through that. But the coordination required, that like those levels of hard difficulties, I think adds such a good like benchmark for guilds to look towards. Is like, this week we're going to focus on this, and then like get through all of the rest of the raid, get all of the gear, and then focus on this one hard mode, and each wave kind of progress, which always feels nice.
I definitely think back to like SSC and TK where like Morgrim and Vosh got nerfed. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, we were like 1 lockout away from getting it, and we're really disappointed because the nerfed version felt easier than a lot of the other bosses in there. And that felt like something that could have been like with the hard modes. You can leave it that way, but still have a wider audience of people who want to get through it. So I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely. You know, that's almost a good segue to talk about you know, Death's Demise, the Realm First achievement.
Right.
There were some changes there. Tim, you want to run down what those changes were and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, originally the achievement was just be the first guild on your server to kill Yogg at 0 lights, and you'd get on 25 player difficulty specifically. And the change that we made was that we now require you to kill Steelbreaker, the Assembly of Iron hardest difficulty version of that encounter, and then also kill all of the keepers. So Hodir, Thorim, Freya, and Mimiron on their respective hard mode difficulties. And one reason that we did that was to sort of even the playing field for guilds competing for this achievement, so that there's not like, oh, it's more advantageous for us to just skip these hard modes because we, you know, killing this boss on the easier difficulty is actually faster. We want there to be sort of a normalized challenge for guilds going for this achievement. And in addition to that, requiring these bosses forces you to get attuned for Algalon week 1.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sort of create this weird separation of like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go for Algalon first, or do you want to go for Yogg 0 light first? Because inevitably you will be able to compete for Algalon with achievement structure like this.
I love that.
There would be 2 separate. We talked about it yesterday on our podcast. Is like there would be fully 2 separate races on every server. There would be guilds that were just going for the achievement, and they would do everything normal just to get to Yogg as fast as possible, and then focus on 0 light. And that would like cause such a rift in the community. So you did a really good job with dealing with that by requiring that all, because if not, absolutely there's people that would get that, and then the guild that actually was able to clear all of the hard modes and even potentially get Algalon, which is going to be very few guilds week 1, would not even have the achievement or the title or anything, and that would feel just so bad.
It's like we did the harder thing, but we got nothing for it.
Yeah.
Right.
We want to be really clear too that this was entirely a community.
Yes.
Like we had this sort of in the back of our heads, but the community was really who pushed us for it and gave us a lot of feedback, and you know, that was why we did it that way.
That's good. I'm glad you did it. Joardee and I, we got Realm First on Benediction for Nax, or I think all the raids, but obviously I'm assuming that we're going to go for it again in Ulduar. And I love that there's that challenge because we're on Benediction. There's a lot of guilds. And for that same reason Star said, where it's easy for someone to go all through normals and just hard practice Yogg and then go Yogg while we're over here clearing literally everything front to back with, you know. So I'm glad you guys are doing that too.
I think it's going to be a legitimately exciting race on most realms.
Yes.
There's going to be some actual progression.
Yeah, it's going to be a real progression.
I think I said it with Sunwell too, but it was like the guild that doesn't wipe will win, and that is awesome, because there's oftentimes in these first clears there's a lot of fancy things that happen that just seem kind of game bending. You know what I mean? And ultimately, there's not a whole lot of that going on in Ulduar for first clear, because you just need to get through the mechanics, and just the mechanics themselves are pretty heavily difficult. And so a lot of the things that we're working on when we're thinking about what we're planning is like, we're not necessarily trying to bend the rules around what we can and can't do. We're just trying to get through it as cleanly as possible, and that'll be the W. So
do you think the
I love
first
that
kill
change.
On Yogg 0 will be a no wipe group?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
I think you
the
can.
Whole place no wipes.
I think you can not wipe in there. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Yogg 0 specifically, and I have a couple questions about Yogg for later when we get to each of the bosses, if you want to do that. But there's a lot of RNG on that fight that you can, lean away from with some good play. But sometimes it's just like, well, that sucked, and I can't do anything about it. And let's go again. And you need everyone going into phase 3. There's no 24 manning phase 3. So
Not
even
yet,
an
at
Iron
least.
Assembly Death Rune can like bad Death Rune. You're just like, well,
I think there's a way.
There are.
There's way around it. but the wrong person getting zapped for insanity and Yogg is like,
Yeah.
you just got unlucky. And
You
it's
get zapped 8 times, or you
Yeah.
get maladied into a crusher,
Uh-huh.
or
beam.
a crusher spawns on a portal, and that's your portal that you have to take. And
Mhm.
you know, there's a lot of ways to just be like, God, that sucked.
You know, outside of the specifics of Yogg, I think, in addition to the change to the Death's Demise achievement, we're really trying to make quality of life improvements for just the fairness of this race. Like, we are being vigilant about identifying all of the outside buffs that people can, you know, spell steal and bring into
There
raids.
we go.
We want to eliminate that.
Got dozens of those last
Yeah,
month.
we brought
Yeah.
DMF into Nax. That was
yeah.
not nobody
Everyone
liked that.
did. Some people had soul revival 10% because
Oh,
only a
man,
few
yeah.
servers had that available.
You.
Some people have 5 stacks of
Yeah.
icy talons.
Icy
or something.
talons
Yeah,
and
it's-
desolation are getting fixed today.
I saw a video on that one.
The fix is in flight.
Who would do that?
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
man.
Who would do that?
One fear that a lot of people have is that when fixes happen, and this is kind of a mini segue, but when fixes happen, do you ever feel like you inadvertently adjust something else within the game that it could be negatively, like interaction it's supposed to be there could be negatively impacted?
I try really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. It
Mhm.
helps that I worked on these classes when we implemented all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I know how to surgically go in and just fix the one thing and not
Okay.
screw with everything else as much as possible. And
Well,
if
remember
if
you
I-
said that, Chris.
If
Yeah,
I feel
right.
like
Clip
if I
it.
feel like my fix is going to have negative impact like that, I'll go to Josh and say, "Hey, I'm really nervous about making this fix." Right?
Mhm.
I'll let
Well,
him
you can
know.
tell that that's the way you do it, because the elemental oath thing was fixed, but the same type of issue is now in other ways. So it's like, just
Yeah, so it's
surgically
very targeted.
fix
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one, but
very
it's-
surgical. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how data is set up in our
Mhm.
editor and in the game. Sometimes, like, there's a funny anecdote about some bugs where XT was casting polymorph, Yogg was casting a block spell, Freya had some banner of the Alliance spell, and it's the same reason, like, why all of those NPCs were doing, or why all those bosses were doing those things, is because the way that, like, when we create a spell, there's a points value that we define for how much damage that the spell does. But some more complicated spells may store
A spell ID.
a spell ID in that points value. And the way that the data was saved in our editor long ago is that it's separated, like, we have a dice roll in addition to our points value, and it split the points value by, like, -1 with the dice roll. So in
Long
our
story
script,
short, off by 1 errors.
Yeah.
Wrong spell ID by 1 digit.
yeah. So in our new data, where that's not the case, the spell ID, like, if you ever go to Wowhead and you see the URL, then you'll see the ID for the spell or the creature or the item. Like, that's we use that same system to cast our spells in script and whatnot. So that's why their polymorph on XT was 1 spell ID up from like Tympanic Tantrum or something like that. So
I think it was Gravity Bomb.
or
right?
Gravity Bomb, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
lots of goofy stuff that we've had to deal with.
It's just fun flavor. That's all.
Yeah.
Idiosyncratic data.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Fun flavor. Well, I don't know, guys. Do we want to maybe dive into individual bosses? Is there any place you guys would like to start?
Yeah.
Joardee, Crix, and Sarth.
Cast Flame Leviathan.
No.
Yeah, no, let's
Kidding.
start on
I'm
Flame
kidding.
Leviathan.
Let's start Flame
Start at the
Leviathan.
beginning.
Sure.
All right, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we had some damage, damage increases and Tower of Frost movement speed, and the grab pyrite on the choppers. That's a little bit different. You want to talk a little bit more about that? Him, I guess. I don't know.
Me? I mean, I made those all
we
new
dealt
skills.
with it. Yeah, we dealt with it. You made it happen, Tim.
Yeah.
I honestly think the most significant thing about Flame Leviathan that we didn't actually revert was the scaling with item level, like your vehicle's power scaling with your item level. And I think, from my perspective as a game designer, I think having progression on a fight
Mhm.
through increasing your gear and getting upgrades is really important. And I think Flame Leviathan would, it's already like a monumentous amount of trash that you have to kill, and it's a huge event, and not being able to improve on that over the weeks and months would probably be annoying.
Right.
Very
and
frustrating.
grading to players. So I think it'll the spirit of the encounter and the spirit of just like being able to improve your character will be improved overall by not reverting that change.
Vehicles were brand new. We hadn't put in that scaling from your gear thing being. We just didn't think of it back then. And like, wait a second. Now I get better gear. I don't get any better. This sucks. I don't want to play. I don't want to do anything with vehicles, right? So we needed to fix it to make vehicles feel good, that you could get stronger when your gear got stronger. So yeah, you don't change that. Keep that.
Because the more you get gear, the faster you get through that fight, and typically everybody just wants to get on with that fight. So
it causes a really fun interaction where a lot of people in like raids and such, like if you're doing Malagos right now, you're like saving all of that gear because it's all item level. That's like what, 226. So like all of your trinkets or anything that drops from Malagos, I have like a few cloth pieces on my main that are ready for Flame Leviathan because you have a specific set, and it will obviously outgear that with the Ulduar gear, but that'll make it so much easier. And it's interesting because this fight, you have all of the different keepers that you can decide to keep up, and each of them are very unique, and not having the choppers bring you pyrite makes it a lot harder. That was like the biggest challenge, but this fight is super hectic, and if you go into Ulduar trying to do this as the hardest version of the hard mode, it's actually a legit challenge. Like it takes a lot of coordination to get through. Like it's not like it's necessarily impossible, it's a crazy amount of coordination, and it throws you into the ringer right at the get-go, or you could do it easy and get past it.
Flame Leviathan hard mode's harder than a couple of the other hard modes, I'd say. It's very easy to coordination and wiping and vehicles, and some people aren't used to vehicles and how they're working. Or even as simple as the sieges, when you boost, you can't control it when it's boosting. You're just going straight. And that can hurt people when you say you get targeted by Flame Leviathan and you got to turn around and sprint away, but you're not paying attention to when you press sprint and you just sprint in the same direction as him, like I did,
Yeah. I think vehicle encounters are always harder because it's not the buttons you're used to. You can't go practice, right? It's like the only time you get to do it is during this encounter when like there's 24 other people. Like, dude, stop screwing up. Which gets the anxiety, because you're learning it for that first time. You didn't get to do it in advance to make sure you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, it's nice because you have the partner system too, where you have to, on the hard mode at least, you have to have, I'm in a siege, someone else is in there with me, use the shield because I can't get away from this Flame Leviathan, but I got to stay close to hit him for flame vents. Like the coordination for you and your passenger on each of these vehicles is so big. Or on hard mode, how the choppers are supposed to go pick up the people who jump off the turrets. Like there's so much things that could be so cool. I like it.
We skipped hard mode the entire week, and then Wednesday you guys were like, oh, it's up another day, and we're like, all right, well, we don't really have today planned, let's go try Flame Leviathan hard mode. And it took us like all afternoon to figure it out. We had like 10 or 15 times, and we had a whole spreadsheet and a map planned out, and everybody had to like do their specific job, and it's an absolute blast. It's going to be annoying teaching people how to do it because there's so many different jobs, and I don't necessarily understand them all. I know what my job was and how to min-max that, but there's like a bunch of different ways to do things. And but when it's working, it's like really, really fun because everyone's like working in unison. They all have different jobs. There's people you throw across the map. There's things falling from the sky. It's just like, it's crazy. And as someone who's never done Ulduar, having that be the first encounter was like, holy hell, this is going to be a crazy instance. Like,
all the
play
fire
Fast
everywhere.
I thought I was playing WoW, not Fast and the Furious. This is nuts. So it's like, so yeah, I mean, props to the original team for designing an encounter like that for the first one. I don't know what you guys were thinking, but that was a Hail Mary, and I think it works. A lot of people don't like that as the first encounter, but as someone who'd never done it, it was a lot of fun. So
well, it makes sense. It's guarding the outside. It's guarding the. I like it because it's guarding the indoor. Like you have those first 4 bosses before you can go inside and fight. That's why it's kind of cool.
I'm a little curious for you speedrunner folks. Like, have you started to think about what you're gonna do to optimize your time on a boss like Flame Leviathan?
We're working. So Warcraft. I'm curious if you guys actually work with Warcraft Logs on something like this. But Warcraft Logs is working on deciding, and they're kind of fielding the community how necessarily we're going to look at speedrunning. And actually, there was a conversation that happened literally yesterday between two of the devs of Warcraft Logs about how they want to deal with it if they think speedrunning will still be very prevalent. And I don't see in Classic any way other than maybe next tier where you can go away from speedrunning. It's such a huge community in Classic. So it's trying to decide if you will start the speed run on pull right now of Flame Leviathan or on death of Flame Leviathan, which could be useful because then you could decide if you're doing hard mode or not during the speed run, and not limiting yourself for gear. And then also for the speed runs, it's requirements, looking at requirements of potentially killing the optional bosses, which you could run by all the way just straight to XT, or requiring hard modes of everything. So there's a lot to consider here because you guys gave us so many options and routes, which is crazy.
Which is so nice.
It's fun for us to watch you guys puzzle through it too. Like, how you guys do it. Yeah.
Do you guys just like laugh when you're watching us wipe 47,000 times to Yogg, where you just popcorn in hand? It's like, look at these bums.
I know Agrand was pretty mean to Rain about their fusion punch deaths, so that was pretty funny.
I saw Zyrene's clip on that. Yeah, it's pretty good.
No, I think for Warcraft Logs, and this is something that I think that you guys might be able to add, is they're hoping to start the speed run on Flame Leviathan's death, so that, and which is I think a brilliant way to start the instance, because first of all, min-maxing a vehicle fight isn't necessarily something everyone's excited about, and two, you're saved as soon as Flame Leviathan dies. So a lot of the problem with speed running is, okay, we did a bunch of trash. We didn't do it perfectly. Let's reset. Or we want to practice all this trash, and we aren't going to. And it sucks, because but if you started on the death of the first boss, then you just have to send it. And as a viewer, it's way more fun because you don't have to sit through 3 hours of people wiping on trash like we did with Sunwell, and you're locked in like that.
That's huge.
Risk it. So I think that they
need API. Yeah.
I'm very uneducated about this, but I think that they were looking for some type of encounter end string that wasn't in there in order to point to it for. I could be wrong.
I think the first week we didn't have the encounter end events in, and then Tim hotfixed those in after a few days. I've been talking to Warcraft Logs about this as well. So
okay, great. Then
we'll keep talking about it.
Yeah, they're going to figure out what they're going to do, and I think that they generally do a really good job of the rules. But
yeah, for sure. So I don't want to spend all of our time on Flame Leviathan. Do we want to skip to something that's a little bit spicier, like I don't know, Iron Assembly or something like that?
Probably just talk about the hard modes.
Talk about the first XT. What?
XT. All right, let's do it.
So, like, obviously, with the damage numbers right now in current phase 1 gear, you need to sustain something like I think it was like 11k DPS from all of your DPS, which is for 6 minutes straight, and that is not something anyone can do yet for that long. So are you guys looking into that? Obviously, that's the one that is the stopgap that like every top guild right now is currently looking, and they're like, we're skipping that hard mode, right? Like it's just not worth it as a time sink.
Yeah, I think we're looking at it from a couple of angles. Like, I think we like the mechanical complexity, like HP aside, how people have to react to searing light, gravity bombs, dealing with the ads, going to single target. There's a lot of good mechanical complexity with XT hard mode that we're probably not going to dial back on. I think the easiest changes are probably look at how much health the heart has. Can we get the HP of the heart in a good place where people don't feel like they need to lust to kill the heart? Or if they do need to lust to kill the heart, then to make sure that the HP buff that he has in hard mode is doable without bloodlust. So it could just be as simple as a couple HP tweaks on XT to make him feel like an appropriate boss 2 on the critical path. But I don't know. Do you guys have different takes on that? I'm super open to feedback.
I feel like that would. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Because for me as a unholy DK, I literally was like, I'm doing 1 million damage to the heart every time. I'm doing an actual, because the way that the fight times out, right? It's 75%, which is I'm always tracking internal cooldowns. So about 2% before the heart comes out, I turn around and stop DPSing because I don't want to reproc anything. Like I've moved off of my weapons. My trinkets are coming off of CD. Ring, if I'm using ring for now until we get Ulduar gear. So everything is coming off of CD. So like I'll let them bring the heart down. And I think the heart's HP feels like not the issue, because with gear buffs, we won't at all need bloodlust to do it. It's purely the our current gear, because I don't think it's unkillable. It's definitely not unkillable. It's just our current gear makes it very much, we'd have to target our comp extremely for that to get it done. And it's just the HP he goes to afterwards that makes that race super hard, because now you probably don't have lust yet. Yeah.
Right.
I think that the popping lust on the heart is a fun, flavorful thing where it's like, we're racing against time. We got to make it. I think that's fun. I think it's when the heart gets, and then he pops up and he's got a gajillion health. And you're like, oh no, we're never going to make this. Like that feels bad. So I would say maybe don't change the heart HP, change the boss HP. And like the flavor of racing against the cast time on the heart is something that should be tough.
Feels good.
That's fun.
That was a piece of the original encounter too. It's like, well, if you can't kill the heart, you're not ready for the rest of it.
Right.
This is the test. Are you even ready to do?
To start it.
It's also one of those things where it's like everyone's staring at the meters and there's no mechanics at all to do except DPS the heart, and that's so much fun to watch your meter just go pew. And so it's like,
So you're saying to increase the HP on the heart? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I
decrease
wouldn't hate
the health
it,
on
dude.
the boss.
It's so fun, that like race where you just see yourself jump up and you're just like, all right, there's like 3 seconds left and you kill the heart. You're like, that felt good, and now let's start the hard mode. It feels like this like actual challenge to even get into the hard mode, and then you're fighting the hard mode for right at current versions. You're fighting the hard mode for a long time, and you're like, oh, we're not getting there, man. Like we're slowly whittling down.
That's the most memorable part of XT I remember, was just fighting that heart and just burning everything.
Or alternatively, you could just raise the enrage timer by a couple minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it's a stamina fight ultimately, and that's okay. But
cool. Do we want to move on to Assembly of Iron next? That's the next probably hard mode.
Oh, it's my favorite fight.
It's a fun fight. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean the most significant change was that heal. Am I wrong?
Oh man, the Steelbreaker one.
Heal going from 20% to 40%.
That's no mistakes.
That was the most heartbreaking thing. Yeah, I think we had 25 pulls after 4 hours of council. Joardee can correct me if I'm wrong. And I remember staring at, I'm a warlock. I remember staring at this dude's at Steelbreaker's health, just like, come on, we can do it. Oh, we got it. In my head thinking this is it. And then boom, someone dies all the way back up. I'm like, and it wasn't 20% health. I don't know. I don't remember 20% health. I remember them getting healed for like a huge amount of health. And then, all right, well, it happens one time, you wipe it up. You might be lucky and have one person wipe, but you guys are pumping so hard that you're like, oh wait, we can actually, nope, someone else died again. It was just the most steel breaking. Should be heartbreaker. It should be heartbreaker, not steel breaker.
I watched a lot of polls of various guilds, yours and others, on a GM account, and I'm like, oh, this is the one, and it's like, nope.
So from your perspective, when you're watching us and you're going, is this the one? Are you like, get it, or are you like, wipe? Are you dooming? Or are you like?
No, I'm
cheering you on.
I was watching for the first guild on PTR to kill it so that I could be like, hey, congratulations. Then I had to go, unfortunately. So
I feel like as a developer, I'd be like, respect this boss, gentlemen. Like,
we're cheering you on, but we're kind of celebrating when you lose.
Yeah.
That's what Tim's thinking, at least for sure.
You guys, okay. Phenomenal. So a little of my background. I was on the internal raid team for the QA user experience group that did raid testing, like all the way from Firelands to the middle of Battle for Azeroth. So I'm used to, we had like a team of 20 plus people, and we would raid every single day.
That's all they did every day.
7 hours straight. We'd give feedback to the designers, and that was our job. And it was awesome. But like, I know I respect the grind. And honestly, what I'm looking for when I watch your guys' streams is like, what is this too much? Like, are they being disheartened by any mechanics? Is anything like completely unfair? Do they enjoy the challenge? Like, are they going to push themselves to get the skill? Do they think that the boss is killable? So it's all respect for you guys doing this on PTR.
It's
I
also
also
huge.
say that fight's perfect.
Yeah,
I really feel like it's like perfect. Sorry to cut you off. Like you have multiple
No, you're
difficulties. If it's too hard, like I mean, it's
Right.
unforgiving, but it's user errors on a lot of the stuff. Running out of the way of the rune of power to drop your rune of death, and are we staying in for overload? Are we running out? Saving your cooldowns. Personal responsibility not to pad. Like it's stuff that's not in your. I mean, a lot of it's in the guild's hands, and then it goes down to the Zug Fest at the end where you guys got to work that out. So
That's another one that's going to get hugely easier with gear too.
Yes, massively.
Yes.
It feels so gratifying right now, I think, to get it down. And I don't know of, and because you watched most of the guilds on progression doing it, because I don't know of any guild that got it down like right away. Everyone was really close. And that was like so exciting. That's literally, it feels like this like actual race to getting this down, this actual progression where everyone is getting like, once you start getting to like 7%, like 13% was where it started. Every time it was like, all right, tank death, heal, all right, and then like literally it just keeps going, and then things kind of fall apart and it really snowballs. So that level of like everyone's personal responsibility and one mistake adds this punishment, especially now, because the gear scaling will help so much as you get more gear, that like it really feels genuinely rewarding. And I think that aspect is something phenomenal added. And you could easily tone it down by not killing Steelbreaker last, right?
Right.
It was cool to have people come in there and be like, I would usually as a streamer, you see your number, like if you wipe a lot, your numbers go down, right? People don't want to see you wiping. But we're in PTR, and as we're wiping, the numbers are going up. And people are going like, wait, is this actually hard? Like, wait, question mark, question mark, question mark. They're like, wait. Fusion's wiping in here, and they go, look, another guild. This guild's wiping. There's another guild's wiping. Another Noda's wiping. All these other guilds are wiping, and then they're getting excited. Other people are like, oh shit, this is actually like, yeah. So it was really cool. I had the chills for a long time during it.
There's such a fun, interesting thing with I say fun, but it's a little head shaker. That classic raids come out like Sunwell. Guilds like Fusion and guilds like Progress and all those groups go through it super fast. And everyone's like, easy raid, and it's like, oh, I don't know, go in,
go in and do it, and see if you can do
how it goes. But no, on Steelbreaker specifically, we had a debrief, Tim and I did, the morning after it had gone out, and we're kind of like just back away slowly, like it's perfect, like it feels
it's amazing.
Literally perfect. I almost every other fight I can think of something else a little wrong with it. This was like
the thing I really like about Steelbreaker too is like you can see where your gear is going to change the way you do the fight too, because the way that we're doing it now, there's about a minute in there where you have to stop doing damage in order to get the rune of power to spawn, because you're not going to get the Rune Master Mulgrim down fast enough, so you have to wait for the Rune of Power. But if your damage is higher, you get that second rune instead of the third rune, and you can burn fast enough to go straight through and that just makes the fight a lot easier over time. And it's also a DPS check, which is exciting because you want to meet that in order to like cut a minute out of your kill time. And so like stuff like that at the top end is really fun because it just adds a whole layer of complexity and stakes. And so I love that fight. As a healer, it's amazing. There's a crazy amount of tank damage. There's a crazy amount of raid damage. This is definitely the first raid in Classic that I'm like, oh wow, I have a lot to do, and the whole raid is kind of on our shoulders again for once. And so you get forgotten about a lot of the time as a healer, and now it's like it's that modern mindset of like, okay, we're rolling cooldowns, we're doing all that stuff, which is a new thing for Classic because it's not, because we're not used to that up to this point.
All those new cooldown tools that you got in Lich King, you actually need them for Ulduar.
We messed a little bit in Patchwork, but comparatively it's child's play. So it's good.
Do we want to move on and talk about Hodir, or do we have more on this one?
Well, I have a quick question. Oh, go ahead, Joardee.
I have as a Kolagarn question.
Sure.
Why is his right arm named his left arm? Because it's not, but it is. As you're facing him, and his right arm is named right arm, and we're yelling, kill the right arm, and everyone turns to the left arm.
His right
And it's
arm.
like, no, the named right arm, and then people's brains break because they're just trying to
because
zug,
mirrors
and-
are hard and they confuse you.
they are hard. So
you should have
Yeah.
put you should have put a hand type 1 and hand type 2.
yeah.
Yeah, we should have got the red hand, the blue hand, the green hand, the orange, something.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
so good.
No, I was gonna ask a question, a serious question. Thank you, Joardee. About assembly of iron. One thing I noticed in your raid, you were talking about how Steelbreaker, sometimes it would be hard to get him out of the rune of power.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
sometimes like that's sort of like fuzzy. It like the aura is sort of sticky. It's not super precise. I'm open to fixing those types of things to make those, especially things on the ground like area denial or area triggers, to be more responsive. So those are the types of minor improvements that weren't in the original fights that I'm willing to make changes to.
There's a
That's definitely-
very fine line as a Joardee. There's this very fine line as a melee because
Mhm.
as a healer, he's like the tank is positioning and he has to
Mhm.
make sure he's close enough. But as a melee, it's the tank has to be very cautious of making sure he's just outside of that line, but you can still melee because his hitbox is small for you, but feels big for that rune, which super tight, very, very tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely
Yeah.
something that, like, hearing Baron's frustration of like this friggin' rune is where it's set, it's not where it should be, and he would just get, you know, globaled. And I think frustration is often not a good thing.
Right.
Um,
And sometimes it's not position. Sometimes it takes time
Sure.
for it to pull the aura off,
Mhm.
even though you're out.
Mhm.
But you
The
think you're
server
in,
tick, yeah.
so then you move too
Mhm.
far, and now melee doesn't have the buff, and everyone's pissed at you as the tank.
Yeah.
I
but then
personally
that-
think we should make it work better. Personally, I don't know what you guys
but
think.
then that's your fault, right? If you didn't move it out, then that's okay. I
Right, but
messed up.
sometimes it's just the server tick was
Yeah.
slow, and
Yeah.
so the tank died.
Yeah.
I think it's the
I'm
right
focusing
spot.
on like, can we
Right.
build that spell in like the way
Better.
that spell would have been built in modern times?
Is there a way to like make it the same size for players, but maybe a tad smaller for the boss? I don't know if that's.
No,
I don't know.
There's
yeah,
tweaks
it's not
that
a
we can
size
make
problem,
to the
but,
boss's hitbox and selections.
But then the boss's hitbox is slightly out of range of like the melee.
Right.
And it's like,
The
ah!
problem is the server has to, on these old style auras like this.
Mhm.
It takes a moment to process just you're out of the area. It doesn't know when you cross the line. The server
Mhm.
has no concept of that. It just says,
Yeah.
"Well, where are you now? Well, let's check a second later to see where you are then." Right. And
Yeah.
it doesn't. You may have gone way out of it, but for that whole second, it sticks around. And if you
Yeah.
swings in that second, you're toast.
Like jumping too, right? Because it doesn't
Yeah.
register
Mhm.
that you're in a new position until you land. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Whereas the
it's-
more modern stuff says, "Oh, you crossed the line, turn it off."
Yeah,
Instantly.
the way the old system used to work was, this is a very rudimentary explanation, but like, you know, when you're moving in a straight line,
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're not sending constant updates to the server either. So that's why sometimes it's like a little slow or fast
Right.
to register an aura coming off you or onto you, and the same concept with creatures too. So yeah, but yeah,
Players can force it by using mouse move
Yeah.
because it forces update, but you can't force creatures to get the same update because they're AI driven.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. Good old leeway.
kind of. I mean, it's kind of what it was. You know?
Yeah, right.
Oh dear.
Oh, and then two minor things on Steelbreaker. We're not going to allow any hearthing out of the instance to get rid of that aura. And one bug that we are not going to revert is people used to put the aura on pets and then desummon their pets to
Wow.
not have to deal with the explosion. But that actually got fixed so that if it was put on your pet, then the explosion would heal him.
the amount of times I got asked, "Did you try hard thing?"
Yeah.
I was like, dude, it's too cheesy. We're not gonna bother. They're probably gonna fix it if it
Yeah.
if it does happen. We need to learn to fight normally. So
right.
Mhm.
The Veil strat back in the day.
Oh,
EWL.
God.
Hearth should not be part of your DPS
Hearth insta
rotation.
log out. Yeah, it's like, what am I doing, man?
I loved the Hearth to save my world, but I was the main tank. on that
Yes, I
fight.
remember you
I gotta
doing
save
that.
my world.
I remember you doing that, Josh. Yeah,
I'm out.
and
All
then you'd
right.
screw up and be really pissed.
Yeah. Time it wrong and you end up blowing up anyway in Stormwind.
Yes.
Hodir. Let's talk about Hodir.
Oh man, what a fun fight.
Yeah.
Well, first time we went in there, no icicles were dropping, but we don't need to talk about that. It was fixed. Joardee, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, Hodir is rowdy. It's 2 minutes is fast. It does feel like there is a healthy amount of RNG in order to meet the 2 minute enrage. I'm not sure that that's wrong. There were a lot of guilds I know that were able to do it. I think it has a lot to do with Stormcloud and the Moonbeam and all that stuff. But it's scary, and when you got your hands on the throttle and you're pushing, and it's 1 minute and 50 seconds into the fight, and you're at 5%, and you're like, I hope we make this, or we're gonna brick our instance, and then you do make it, and it's great, but to not make it and to not get Algalon or whatever would feel really bad. But I think that's just part of the game and the risk, and that's okay also. So it's fun. It's a fun fight. It goes from like really easy in normal mode. I think it's definitely like one of the easiest fights in there on normal mode to absolutely one of the harder ones. We wiped 10 plus times till we got it, and you have to class stack, and we went down to 2 healers, and there's a bunch of strategy adjustments. And I guess I have a question is like, are you guys okay with class stacking as on a whole, like week 1? Like, is that something that as a designer that you understand is going to happen, and then it will eventually go away, but in order to get those early on, is that something that like,
I think as long as it eventually goes away, if it becomes a class stacking thing forever, like you must bring 5 unholy death knights to the entire raid, now you've got a problem. Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel unreasonable for a week 1 as a player, because we're all trying to find a competitive edge, and class stacking is part of that. And if you have the roster or the bench to do that, great. But Hodir is one of those where it's like, oh, we should stack this raid because you don't want to risk screwing this up. And that
there's
run
a
back
few
is not
fights.
fun.
There's a few fights like that where you're just like, if we don't have the right composition for this fight, it's actually going to be not necessarily doable. It's maybe doable, but it's so tight, and the fine line is so crazy in the early weeks, and that'll go so much further away when we have like gear from Ulduar for everyone, and everyone's scale is so incredibly high with this new eye level gear. So like that fight is like the first one where you're just like, we really need to situate this well so that our DPS is high enough to pump. And then like later fights, it's the same thing, but sometimes some of the different classes are the ones that excel. Algalon in particular is just like, where's our paladins right now? So like that is week 1. It's definitely like you feel it. It's tight before you get the gear with your current gear. It is crazy.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing. Sorry, Crix. The difficult thing about making adjustments to try and prevent that week 1 scaling is that you run the risk of changing the boss in such a way that either it will exacerbate the effectiveness of week 1 scaling, it'll just make it that much better to do it, and it might also damage the experience and the boss and could change it in a fundamental way that's not authentic. Obviously, perfect authenticity is going to be kind of impossible due to the nature of how Ulduar evolved over time. But we run the risk of doing some weird Frankenstein thing trying to prevent that. So it's like, obviously would prefer that not happen, but at the same point, it's like we know that the ultra high end guilds are going to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then eventually everyone can get it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely like one of the hardest hard modes in there week 1, but I think it will be one of the easiest ones over time because people understand the fight better and gear. So
the more comfortable people get with that. I'm a caster, and I've done Hodir on all the casters except for Elemental this round, and I'll say that even just when I first went in there and how much damage you can do because you're not casting, you're running around, and casters do insane amount of damage on Hodir, right? So, and they're all scared. Fire mages, warlocks, shadow priests, boomies, they're all doing so much damage, and they're all scared because they got to move so much. But after I got comfortable, after the second or third run, I'm planting, and it allows you to these cheese fire mages to do all their stuff, all the crit where shadow priests don't have to mind blast, they can mind flay spam the whole time, top meters. Boomies are starfire spamming, demos are doing demo things, warlocks are snapshotting, and once we all get comfortable, that boss is gonna die. Like the damage difference from like a caster being comfortable and a caster not knowing is like triple. It's like so much damage. And so once the casters start getting it down, then that boss melts. Because I feel like you can reach that timer much more handy when you're stacking casters and they're all comfortable playing the game.
I vaguely remember our mages winning and losing that hard mode way back in the day. Like if the mages were in their game, we'd win. If they weren't, we'd lose.
Yep, Fire is cracked on that one too. Shadow Priest too. When the community figures out how to play Shadow Priest on that, where you just drop everything and Mind Flay spam in there, it's gonna be it's broken. It's like nothing comes near them, so that's pretty cool. Yeah,
that's definitely a fight I wouldn't touch. I think it's great the way it is. But once the icicles were fixed, we were a little nervous because we barely made it without icicles, and then we figured it out. But
didn't we make it the last one? Did we make it?
No, we got it.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's funny because you get like a 150 kill and you're like, wow, that was easy, and then you do it the next day and it's like 235, and you're like, how did we screw that up?
Yeah.
What made you guys go from 3 to 2? Wasn't it 3 back in the day? 3 minutes? Or am I tripping?
Oh, the hard mode timer?
Yeah.
I saw a video from Rugs saying that it was totally doable at 2 minutes. So you
data change. That was a data change, right? Originally it was 2 and got extended to 3.
Yeah.
Right? You'll love that.
Well, it got nerfed and then buffed and then nerfed again, right? Like, isn't that what happened, Tim? It was like 2 and then it was 2.5 and then 3? Or am I thinking
there was a couple zigzags on the time for it. But.
It feels right. It feels exactly right at 2. Like that's the challenge, and it's a hard mode, and that's what it's supposed to be. It feels exactly right. Like that's the tight, very fine line. Like week 1, and even some of the early weeks, a lot of guilds are going to be like, "Oh, we were so close," and it's like, wipe it up. He's at 3%. Stop DPSing. Get your pets off of them. Why did you dot him? It's like,
oh no, he died.
No! What's really fun too is that like 2 minutes and 3 seconds, that icicle he throws is in midair, and if he dies before it hits the chest, it doesn't break the chest. And
it used to.
Yeah, and so like that happened to us on the last one, and we were like, no. And then I was like, oh, it's still clickable. We did it. All right.
It's like a from half court 3-pointer at the buzzer.
The buzzer went off. Sorry.
It kind of feels better seeing it, like the visceral feeling of seeing it and be like, oh my god, you're like seeing it go out. Yeah,
it's a major relief when it doesn't just shatter.
Sounds like you guys had a good time.
That was a fun one. That's another fun. Those two started like Iron Council and then right into Thorim or Hodir. Like those hard modes feel so fun, right? Mm-hmm. It's like this real challenge and this real close race, which is that's the exciting, the visceralness, and it's something that I think in Classic we'd missed for a while. Once we lost world buffs, there was a lot less of this risk reward or these stakes, and now there's a lot more stakes. Whereas one thing goes wrong, it's like, all right, reset, go again, or wipe the run in speed runs, and then also like Joardee was saying, for the race world first, that's the run. But currently right now the version is well, just battle res and we'll just run it again or something. So these stakes in hard modes feels really, really good.
I think that, and the most importantly about these hard modes is that they're user errors, and that's the biggest thing it could be. Which you guys are obviously, you started asking how to eliminate the RNG, which you guys are doing great on. These are straight up human error. Hodir you're a bum. Get out of that circle. Flash free, you know them. You guys, I don't know.
You know what you're supposed to be doing. You didn't do it.
Exactly. You guys know the mechanics. You don't do that. Whereas he was talking about Yogg, where you can get a little kind of crappy portal placement or something. But yeah. So I love that. I love the human error stuff because it's very easy to, coming from, and we're not amazing gamers or nothing, but there's a difference between us gaming and then a lot of other people who game. And when you're playing TBC or whatever, and you're spamming Shadow Bolts in a Warlock's perspective, there's nothing that sets you apart from me and Sarth or me and whoever else, right? Now a whole war you see right away in these PGRs who's using half of their fucking kit, or excuse my language, half of their kit, right? So it's really exciting. Sorry, I get worked up. I'm very excited about this. I love hard content.
I love your excitement.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I used to play retail, and I love cutting edge retail raider, and I quit 4 Classic. So I've been chasing this for a minute, right? And so I'm loving it, and it's back, and yeah.
Awesome. Thorim?
Easiest one in there.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Really?
As
That'll
it should
make
be.
people feel
Oh,
good. That like
Yep.
if there's a hard mode that you can get done like week 1, like the guilds, this is the one to go for, right?
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
semi
Look forward
hard
to it.
mode of Iron Council, and then get this Thorim, a phenomenal loot, right? And you'll feel so rewarded and so good. And after this really like tight race right before it with Hodir, then it feels good to get this done. And then you go into Freya afterwards. It's like this nice like little intermission where you're feeling good again, and then like Freya, you blow yourself up. So I don't know how, like, Joardee, how did you guys feel about this fight? But it felt fun and really good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love asynchronous fights like this where there's the raid splits up into two, and I know that the modern game has a lot more of that, but this I think is the first one. I'm sure there's another one, but whatever. But it's a lot of fun. I did the tunnel every time, which is probably the more interesting section to do, but it feels kind of like a platformer where there's like stuff coming at you and you're dodging. Everyone go left, everyone go right, that's fun. And then it's definitely one of the easier ones, and I think that's good design because you get a hard mode, and that week 1, even if you don't plan on it, like all you got to do is set people up in spots, and if they're not chaining lightning, you're probably going to get the kill. And that's, I think that's good to get a taste of it before you start branching out into the other stuff. So I wouldn't change anything with Thorim. It was
Actually,
fun.
Now that you mention it, there's one thing I'm curious with you guys watching, like the devs perspective, as well as like Joardee was inside of the kind of tunnel. It feels like the timer to start hard mode is very lenient. I did some pugs where we were doing like very puggy things, and I was like, oh, don't run in because we don't want to trigger hard mode because we're just knocking out these things very easily. So that timer feels almost so lenient that guilds that don't want to trigger hard mode are gonna have to hold back. So yeah, maybe there's gonna be some people like watching this and they're gonna be like, why did you make it harder? But it feels like you almost have
it's free. The kill's free.
It is. You trigger hard mode even when you don't want to. You have to stop for like 40 seconds almost.
I don't think it's bad if there's a free fight, if you want it to be free, especially because your XD Iron Council are going to be hard for these guilds. I'm looking in terms of people who aren't killing hard modes, and then they go into this and they get a free kill, which is nice. But you also made it punishing too. Like if you get hit by that lightning in phase 2, it one shots you. It one shots everybody, right? Except for a tank. So it's like, unless you have a bubble on you, so you still have those unforgiving mechanics in the last phase of them. But man, I was astonished at how easy those ads died. Like the ads' health, like if they'd melted, I was shocked at how big or how much they melted. But I think it's okay to have one fight like that. I was happy that there was. I did do one of the pugs, and we blew through it, and it was such a morale booster because we were chain wiping on everywhere else in the whole raid. So it was the biggest morale booster. So like I'm okay with it, to be honest. But yeah, definitely a more of a free kill.
Yeah, it's totally fine for there to be, fights even in the middle of the raid that are marginally more approachable and easier than the others. I will look into the timer for for when hard mode triggers on Thorim. I'm curious about that. That's not something I saw change, but maybe I missed something. There were 2 changes that we noticed this week that I'm perhaps changing. Like Unbalancing Strike actually had a 15-second recast timer instead of 20 seconds. And it also wasn't an on next swing attack. He cast it independently of his melee. So that could make it a little spicier for tanks and healers.
Right, a little less predictable.
I don't know if that's
tank damage didn't feel out of hand on that.
Okay,
fight.
then I'll add that. Great, thanks.
The fight really felt good. It did.
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah,
the fight felt really good. It did feel really good. If I had to change anything, I would say make it like Sarge said, the timer, whether it's like quicker to get hard mode activated or something, or you need less time, whatever. Other than that, like I love the fight. The electric killed you right away.
Yeah, you never died to like all of the deaths I experienced seeing. Like not even taking it was if you chain lightning, right? And that was a user error, right? Like you always had one melee that's running in between the melee groups. And that happens it's like Kel'Thuzad where you freeze your entire melee and you're like, why did you do that? Now this is more punishing and instant. And then like the lightning that goes out is very obvious. So it wasn't, I don't think Joardee could say, but like tank damage didn't seem like it was intimidating whatsoever.
It definitely ramps up towards the end, but that's part of the fight, right? So it's okay. I think that this is just the original design, but getting trapped in the prison as you're running behind Thorim is so hilarious and like
that is so funny.
Like I've seen a fell hunter get trapped and it's just like sitting there sad while the warlock leaves it behind, and it's just so funny to me. Stuff like that is super fun and adds a lot of flavor.
Unless you're the
thing about the funniest thing about that is every single time, and Joardee knows when we first did it, how many times would you like, don't walk in the middle, and every time you do it, if there's always one or two people who go, yeah, I'm walking in the middle, and they get stuck and everybody laughs. Every raid you do, you can say that, don't walk in the middle, and someone who doesn't know will walk right in the middle.
Ulduar clip compilations are about to be phenomenal.
Good fight.
We need them to come back.
Yeah, I know we should probably move on to the next boss, but I have just one little fun bug that I experienced on Thorim that I had to fix. The dark rune Colossus that's in the side room that's smashing the left and right hand side of the hallway. The rate at which messages are sent and processed between like creatures and objects is way more responsive nowadays than it used to be. Who knew? And so in our when we were looking at this before it went to PTR, if he smashed the left side of the hallway, every single explosion would happen simultaneously because the messages from each of the little explosion points didn't have that natural delay that the original game had. So I had to create an artificial delay between each of the messages that matched like our reference client and old videos that we pulled up. So
that's awesome.
That's cool. I like that. That's dope. That would help a lot because I would have died to that a couple times. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
We are kind of running short on time here. The great energy. We've had a lot of fun talking about these things. I think probably I hate to skip Mimiron because it's amazing, but we might want to just talk about Yogg. Yeah, because we only have a few more.
This is the crazy fight. I'll let Joardee spend forever.
I don't want to skip Algalon either. I have a lot of Algalon.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry,
but
go. Let's go to Yogg.
We'll rock it through Yogg. Yogg is an amazing fight. I have almost no requests for changes except the random sanity damage he does. I think one of the newer builds was like at 40 sanity, he won't target you after that. That feels like a nerf that was justified because it feels really bad to have no recourse against sanity. And there are just times where it's like, well, I got targeted 8 times and that sucks, and now we're gonna wipe. That was the only thing that felt like there was no counterplay in the entire fight that I feel like is something that's worth changing, just because I know as a gamer, when it feels like you have no way of winning, it doesn't feel fun. Otherwise, like the maladies into crushers, that's fun. It's funny. And you can bop the person and they won't die.
Right.
The same thing with the crusher on the portals. There's a way to survive. You just play right. So yeah, that was my only thing on Yogg. I love that fight. It's an absolute blast, and I can't wait to do it like every week.
Yeah, I think that fight is so crazy. That was the first like real progression, like not first, but like the crazy progression fight. That was like a huge stopgap, and most guilds are not going to go for 0 light, right? Like just having one keeper up is seriously such a difference. But realistically, like even in phase 1, most guilds, you're just going to see so many people early on running into clouds all the time because that hitbox is large too. So it's like there's so many of those that'll just snowball effect. That fight feels phenomenal. Actually,
I definitely feel like the crushers are the most dangerous things in there. Those things are those things are deadly for many reasons, not just because of the portal placement, kind of like Joardee was talking about. You got to avoid it, right? That's common sense. It's not hard. Now the thing is, it's not hard for me to avoid it. I can avoid it, but then I got pets. As you know, sometimes have a mind of its own. Here's what you guys did with that you guys don't realize. All serious pet users have pet attack macros in certain kind of keybinds. You know what I mean? You can't do that on this fight because your pet will. You just can't do that because you don't pay attention. He will try to sneak past the crusher and go to a corruptor and get clapped out and hit another melee there, or I could give you a list of things that can make a
That's
pet.
good. I love that as a
People
pet.
gotta
yeah,
pull their macros out. And,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, after,
from,
like-
from
Micro
going
pets.
hunter, it's like you in TK, that was like the biggest thing. It was controlling your pet, always recalling it whenever there was like a whirlwind that went out. We were able to instantly despawn and respawn our pets. But like watching that, it adds this other aspect that like you're a pet user class, like that should be so important to you because your pet is as half your damage or whatever it is, right?
It might be worth thinking whether or not having the crusher not able to target the pets is worth it or not, but it's definitely harder leaving it on there where it can target pets because it kills your tanks, it kills people all the time when those pets run in, and that's
feels like we should leave it on.
Yeah, it's
Leave
not
it
that
on.
it's killing the pet because like as a fell hunter, my fell hunter is like garbage damage. It's not a big deal. As a demo lock, it sucks because it's a fell guard, right? But it's that your fell hunter can run in and it slams your fell hunter and slams your tank, slams whoever else is there, right? Which can happen to anybody. I don't think that should be changed. I think that's more paying attention or like, you know,
it's counterplay there.
It is, and I hate to say it, it is paying attention. I know I messed it up a lot too, but once it's a lot, it's more paying attention than you already have to do. You know,
It's also one of the
It's
flavors
part
of
of the game.
classic, just like pet management, where on modern so much is done to prevent anything from actually damaging your pet.
Yeah.
So
or people complaining about things being too easy and that you don't have to pay attention to a pet, or you know, warlocks sacrificed the pet for the last 2 expansions, so you use your pet and it makes you use your kicks, and you know the whole reason of it. I love it.
Yep, I agree.
Awesome.
Beams are unforgiving. That's great. I think it was a 2-tick, right? Gosh, yeah, 2-tick, 2 or 3 ticks to get into a beam.
if you're
Good
lucky
damage.
it's two.
Yeah, good damage. The crappy part would be like Crusher spawns on you, and you're running in one way, but then you don't realize the beam's that way, but then you turn around and run the other way, but there's a Crusher, and then there's a Milady, whatever I call it, and then boom. You know what I mean?
Milady.
Milady.
I'm mad because I got that, so I'm yelling in comms like, "I'm Milady, I can't move," and everyone's like, "Okay, my lord." I'm like, "Oh, shut up!" Like, stop trolling me.
So the only additional change that we're probably making to Yogg, I think there was a hot fix that we didn't catch where the HP of the Guardians and the Immortal Guardians is actually 15% lower than it should be. So,
And I don't know if that's going to be a buff or a nerf because their damage is percentage of their HP, right? So if their HP is generally bigger, they will heal less. I don't know. It's somewhere in the realm of
we'll think
gray
about it.
instead of
Yeah, definitely test really.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel from watching like progression guilds pushing to get it down? And were you like caught off guard by like, were you not expecting anyone to clear it over the PTR as you had it open, or did you, because you extended the PTR, so did you push that so that you could see the guilds push to be able to try all of the different strategies so you could see if there was any bugs and then also move on to Algalon?
Honestly, the reason we extended it mostly just because this is a really ambitious set of pre-nerf changes. We just wanted to give it as much time as we could. Being real, I will probably bring it back shortly for a short amount of time, maybe after the holidays. But it just needed time to soak. And that's really what it comes down to. In terms of watching you guys though, and watching streams and things like that, there were so many streams I watched that someone's like, "Oh, we got this like 11%. We totally got this." And I come back like 4 hours later, and they're still wiping. They're still wiping because you think you're like, "Oh, I think we got this." It's like, no, you don't got this.
Well,
that's where it gets hectic.
The difference between 11% and dead on Yogg is a lot because you're doing a whole new dance with
that was our hardest stuck, wasn't it? 11%. We were 11% for like 8 hours, 9 hours.
Yeah.
I think definitely I was worried about 2 extremes. One, it will all be easy and we'll crush it all. I'm like, nothing in classic could ever be hard. So glad we did not hit that. But also like, did we overdo it and no one can beat it? And I landed in this sweet spot where like it was a challenge, but not too much. You guys really happy.
Do you guys? So nobody tests it before us for you guys?
No, we have
other than the old
group of
days.
Testers,
We have some internal tests, but like
Speaking of
cool.
challenge, could you just Algalon super quick before we have to go?
Yeah, let's talk about Algalon.
Okay.
Yes.
There's rumors floating around that the damage was buffed, but his attack speed wasn't changed. Is there any truth to that?
I'd have to pull up Algalon changes specifically. We brought back I think we brought back all the pre-nerf changes to Algalon. And in addition to that, we applied a 20% health and damage buff to Algalon and everything inside the Algalon
that
encounter.
20% was to make up for the fact that we jacked up item levels to keep him as hard as he was. Right.
It's really hard.
He's hard. Our best attempt was 14%, and it was rowdy and fun.
That's really impressive.
It was good.
There's one thing, he was casting the explosion in the last phase. Isn't that supposed to make him despawn?
So for PTR, I specifically forced him to ignore his despawn actions. So on a realm that's not type PTR, he will listen to the timer and will disappear after an hour. That is not changing.
The battlefield is very bright. I think everyone has like reference videos of it being a lot darker. Is that something that you guys are looking into?
So on that note specifically, like basically it's a combination of the asset itself and some engine changes over time, because we are using the modern games engine.
Sure.
And that if you go into Ulduar now in modern, actually you'll see the same thing. And so I can't really promise anything. We're going to try really hard to get a fix in for it. We think we've got something narrowed in, but it's a pretty tricky issue, unfortunately, because it's sort of like a core engine thing. But we think we've got it narrowed down. We're going to try and fix it though, because it's definitely it's pretty night and day.
Yeah,
pun intended. Like it's pretty night and day difference between how it was before and how it is now.
There's definitely clips too of like people turning their camera a tiny bit, and then the cosmic smash appearing and disappearing, which is rough.
But,
I myself, I'm colorblind, and I know a lot of people are. I can't. It's so I have to literally go into my settings just for that one fight and like crank the contrast, turn the brightness down, go to like track a pluckle mode on whatever color, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a huge concern for us. We definitely want to keep accessibility in mind and everything like that. So we're going to try really hard to get a fix for that.
Amazing fight otherwise, so it's
crazy,
very hard. I love it. It's such a fun fight for a warlock with all the sniping and all the stars, and mind blown. I didn't do Algalon once. I've never done it on the servers. I've never done it back in the day. So these Prague PTR attempts were my first time seeing them, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
Based on what you saw us and everyone else working on, do you think you'll tune his damage any way, or are you going to leave it the way it is?
I personally didn't get to watch a lot of the Algalon pulls. Josh probably has the most hours clocked on that.
I mean, I leave it as what I'd say. I don't know. Like,
the fact that you guys in next year were able to get to 13%.
You're intended to have a lot better gear than you guys had to beat it.
Yeah.
That's the intention.
And that's what I keep telling people when they stick people, because some people do complain about it being hard. I'm like, yo, we're in Nax gear. Not even all Nax gear, because some people just copied their character over from our guild and didn't even replace gear because we wanted to have that like live feeling, you know? So it's gonna get easier. And like I said, 10 to 25s.
Just going to 232 is going to be like the average item level curve. That's like 10 to 15% damage right there. Actually, it's more. And and then once you get a few 252 pieces from Thorim and from Freya and maybe some of the other easier hard modes, you're going to have a lot easier time with that. There's a gear progression to it, and that's what I think that's the goal. That's the intent, right?
That's definitely intent with Algalon. Yeah.
Words cannot express how happy I am that you guys are not nerfed touching this like this. That kind of like a lot of people are worried about a lot of people want it to remain as so, besides the little tweaks that you're gonna do, and we're all like, I hope they don't nerf it, bro. I really hope they don't change the hard modes.
Absolutely. You know what? We do need to start wrapping up. I am very sorry we didn't get to everything. I kind of expected we wouldn't, but we got to quite a bit. But thanks everyone for kind of joining us for this. This was really fun. I'd like to do more things like this, like the whole team would. It was a great time. And thank you guys for testing. Thanks to everyone out there who tested. We had a lot of people on PTR this last week, and we got a lot of excellent data, a lot of excellent bug reports. Huge, very huge.
Thanks for bringing enthusiasm to the community, and this makes me so excited about this.
Yeah, honestly, your guys' level of passion and enthusiasm, like it fuels us. Like we want to do a better job at providing the best experience for you and everyone in the classic community. So it's
well, I speak for myself and a lot of people when I say you guys are doing a good job with Lich King so far.
Really,
you guys really are. Dragonfight, if you guys have any hand in that, is pretty cool as well. But right now, classic wise, you guys are doing chef's kiss, phenomenal. So
Ulduar feels like a home run already. So thank you for all the work. It's it's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to running it 5 times a week.
Yeah, right. And thank you guys for having the conversations with the community, right? Like things like this, and like being there during the PTR testing, and like taking note of what things are working and what isn't working feels really good. And the progression, like, it's going to be such a challenge early on for so many people, but it's crazy, like, what's coming. And this is the most exciting thing that we've had in Classic in a long time.
Yeah, it really is.
Last thing I'll leave us with, I'm probably going to regret doing this. We have the Classic team has a public facing email. It's agrand@blizzard.com. If you have feedback, if you want to say something nice about the team, preferably not anything mean about the team, you can email that. We try to reply to almost everything that goes there, but we may not get to everything, but we try. We really like talking to people, and we really like interacting with everyone who's playing. So, yep.
Last question.
Yeah. Okay.
Release date.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing, you know what I'll say, I'm not going to tell you the release date, but what I'll leave you with is that we will be in Ulduar much longer than we were in Naxxramas. Like, we are going to because of that gear progression and that boss progression, and we expect it to have a lot longer tail. We're going to be here for quite a bit longer.
That's good. That's cool.
So I'm so excited for the future. Yeah, exactly. Literally, I was right about to say it.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate you guys. Good luck.
We appreciate you guys too. Take care.
Thanks.